Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at paper and board for the second year revision. So just to recap, what we did from last year was basically to identify the different types of paper and card and what their properties are, stock forms that paper and card come in, how it's formed, whether that's cut, bent, etc., how it's printed, and then how to select the right material for what you want to do. Now with the forming and printing processes, that will be covered in a separate video which is all about forming all materials, so we're not going to focus too much on those 2 points at the minute. We're going to focus more about the different types of paper and card, their properties, stock forms, and then selecting the right materials for the job. So first of all, we had this magic term last year which was GSM, which stands for grams per square meter. So the magic number with that is 220. So anything that is 220 or above is board. Anything that is under 220, that is paper. That's to do with how thick the paper or board is. So what we're looking at the minute is our paper. So this is everything under 220 grams per square meter. So some of these you'll have heard of before, or most of them you will have done, particularly if you've done art before. Some of them might be a little bit new to you. So what we've got is things like layout paper. So layout paper is quite thin, translucent, so you can see through it a little bit. It's got a smooth surface. Typically used in sketching and technical drawing. So before CAD was a thing, when you had draftsmen and they would have the big drawing boards with their big pieces of paper, and they would have paper where they could do all the technical drawing or their orthographic drawing, and it's the whole reason why it's translucent, so you can trace through things quite easily. Really good to sketch on. It doesn't smudge or anything like that. So next you got your cartridge paper. So this is off-white, which means it's kind of white but almost like a little bit dirty sort of white. Textured surface, so it's not completely flat, it's got little bumps raised into it. Typically used if you get a good quality sketchbook, which you should have. You'll find that's normally what your sketchbook is in it, particularly if, again, you do something like art. And it's really good for rendering in pencil, colouring pencils or pastels, because again it doesn't smudge, because the texture on it, when you render, it holds the colour really well. You've then got bleed proof paper, which is similar to cartridge paper, but it has a bleed proof layer on one side so it doesn't run. So if you're using something like marker pens, bleeding essentially is if you put the pen onto paper, and if the ink kind of disperses around the dot that you've done, that's called bleeding. So it's bled into the paper, and it can end up ruining sketches sometimes. You can spend ages doing these sketches, and if you're rendering using marker pens, and if it's not bleed proof, it literally can just soak in and ruin the page. So yeah, and typically bleed proof paper is done normally when you are doing rendering with marker pens. You can get specific marker pens to render, and some people like to do it in that specific way, particularly in industry, and it's perfect for that because it stops it from bleeding. So you've got treated paper. So this is plain paper that has a clear binder or dye applied to it. So this will hold an image on it really well, and it will brighten the image up. So you can make it have matte or gloss. So gloss being it's shiny, matte being there's no shine to it whatsoever. But it's perfect for when you want to hold on any images on there, and it holds it perfectly. It doesn't smudge, it won't distort, it won't fade in light and things like that. And typically that's used for photographic printing. So if anyone does photography in their spare time or has ever done it before and you go into dark rooms and things like that, you're using treated paper. And then the last one is watercolour paper. So this is available in either absorbent or smooth or hot pressed. There are other textures that you can get. So you can get rough textured like you can with cartridge paper, or it can be smooth. But the whole point is it holds watercolours really well without bleeding, without separating, without fading. And as the name suggests, watercolour paper is used for watercoloured painting. So those are our papers. So that is everything for papers. That is everything that's under 220 grams per square meter. So the next one, this is all cards. This is everything 220 GSM and above. So some of these again you'll have heard of quite regularly, some of them not really unless you've done something like art before. So corrugated card, a very common use, typically used for packaging. So it's used a lot with carton board outer layers, and it offers protective layer. Now that is because obviously corrugated card, if you've ever looked at it, so anytime you've ordered anything from Amazon, corrugated card basically has two layers, and in the middle of those two layers is that wavy sort of card in the middle. So that's what it means by it offers protection from impact. It doesn't mean that it's shock absorbent and you can chuck it at a wall and it won't break, but it means if it gets a little bit of a knock in transit while it's being delivered, it will protect it a little bit, a bit of a shock absorbance. So typical uses are things like protective packaging, like Amazon being the main one, and it's typically really good for model making and prototyping, which is why I got a lot of you to do that with your prototypes for your design section. Then got your bleach card. So this is card that's been chemically treated to brighten the surface up. So typically, bleached will be the main chemical one. So it makes it really, really vibrantly bright, and it's suitable for high quality printing. So something like greeting cards that you get, or high quality packaging that needs to have that nice white look to it. You've then got your mount board. So my mount board is made from compressed fine cotton fibers, and it makes it really, really rigid. So this is typically used for presenting artwork or picture mounting. If you go to university and you ever have to do display your work in an exhibition, you will have to use mount board to do that. So when I graduated at university, I had to present all my design work to the public, and we were given these huge pieces of mount board that we had to present all our work onto it. You have got duplex board. So duplex board is made out of 2 layers of paper, and the exterior is coated to make it water resistant. So typically it'll have like a glossy sheen, so it's a bit shiny and it'll have a waxy feel to it. So most commonly used for things like food packaging, like juice or milk cartons, or disposable plates. Sometimes it will be if you've got takeaways and you've got duplex board, and that is the white bit like on your Chinese, so it kind of feels a bit waxy, so it stops moisture escaping. You've then got foil backed and laminated card. Again, so this is card with polymer film or foil applied to either or both sides. So this again makes it water resistant, makes it heat insulating as well. This is quite a pain to recycle, doesn't tend to be, because you have to remove the foil afterwards. And again, this is used for the same sort of thing as duplex board, is drinks packaging, milk cartons, takeaway box lids. It's cheaper than duplex board, so that's why it's used more commonly. You got something like metal effect card. So that's really high quality card with a very thin layer of metal applied to it, the outer surface. And this is literally just to make it look pretty, to improve the aesthetics of it. So you can emboss it, which is where you have letters like dipped into the surface for it. And that can be used for things like gift boxes and packaging, fancy business cards, things like that. And then the last one is molded paper pulp. So this is recycled paper that's been put into a pulp and then molded into a specific shape. So it's very eco-friendly packaging. Typically things like egg boxes. If you've ever gone to, say, McDonald's drive-through and you get a couple of drinks and they give you that tray to hold your drinks into, it's the same thing. So if sometimes you buy big bits of electronics like TVs and things like that, and they're around the corners, because it doesn't look very nice, but it doesn't need to. It's quite cheap. It's just recycled paper. They've not bothered to bleach it, not bothered to treat it, because it doesn't matter. It's just very easy to recycle and very cheap to produce. So that was all the papers and cards you need to know for the exam. So what we're going to do now is have a look at some exam questions. So like with the other videos, typically you need to know papers, but when the exam comes, you're probably going to have to draw in 2 or more theories together. So it might be papers and then paper processes. So obviously we've not covered paper processes in this video, but we did cover it in the first year content already. But you might need to compare, say, paper packaging to, say, glass or metal packaging. So it's important to make sure you've got a good understanding of a couple of different of the same areas and able to compare and contrast. So we're going to look at some questions. I'll break them down for you, and then if you could pause it, answer the question, and then unpause it to go through the answers as well. So first one, so for each of the following materials, explain in detail why it's suitable for the product listed in the table below. Your answers should make reference to function, aesthetics, and manufacture. So you've got shape memory alloy, suitable for dental braces, photo quality cartridge paper, point of sale display, polymorph, modelling of a prototype toothbrush, handle. So 6 marks for each one. So first of all, read the question properly, as it tells you what it wants you to say. So it's told you need to talk about function, aesthetics, and the manufacturing of it. And then it says 6 marks. So realistically, for each one of those, it's 3 points for each one. And then give examples of evidence to back up your answer. Remember, if you don't know, have an educated guess. For example, for a point of sale display, it needs to be attractive to customers. So it needs to look nice, and it also needs to be mass produced pretty easily. So you can start to think about, okay, which papers does that apply to? Which ones have a nice finish to it, that a look you can print on easily, and which ones can you cut out and print in a huge quantity? So pause the video and then have a go at answering it, and I'll put the answers on for you. Okay, so first one, shape memory alloys for dental braces. So react to temperature. So when the braces are placed onto the teeth by the dentist, they react to the body temperature and they contract and tighten. So that's how they slowly start to pull your teeth back into the correct place. It's an inert material, which is important as we use in the mouth. So you don't want it to corrode. So inert means it doesn't react to moisture or liquids or anything like that. And shape memory alloys are non-toxic material. So again, obviously it's going into the human body, so you can't have a toxic material that is going to make someone ill. So photo quality cartridge paper for point of sale display. So it will give you a high gloss finish, which is necessary for professional finish, because you're trying to attract customers, so you can have a nice good quality picture on there to promote DVDs, new games, new products, whatever it may be. So you want it to look as nice as possible, nice glossy finish. Paper quality. Photo quality paper can be laminated onto card or polymer backing, so that basically makes it so it can be constructed easily, so it can stand up no problem. It's also made from sustainable sources, so it actually doesn't have much of a negative effect on the environment. It's quite easy to recycle. And then polymorph granules bond together with the application of gentle heat, so you can boil some water, get to about 60 degrees, and then it's really easy to shape. And then what it would do is it basically gives you a similar finish to injection molding. So it's really simple, really quick way to get the idea of a handle, no problem. You just boil some water, let it cool a little bit, put the polymorph in it, and you can start to form it, and then you can then paint it to add some more details to it as well. So next one, match each of the following compliant materials to the correct application in the table below. So layout paper, styrofoam, acetate, and bleed proof paper. So this is a simple case of multiple choice. You can only use each answer once. Again, pause the video, have a go. So modelling will be extruded polystyrene foam, which is what we typically call blue modelling foam in college and in secondary schools. Design sketching would be layout paper or bleed proof paper. Marker rendering, again, you have bleed proof paper or layout paper. Typically, probably you go bleed proof paper more than layout paper. And then retail packaging with clear display window will be acetate. Next one, name the specific type of card used in making of brown packaging boxes and state 2 reasons why this card is used. So carton board, you could have said flute card or corrugated card. You can't just say cardboard, you've got to be specific. The most common one probably would have been corrugated card, but things like carton board is used because it can be recycled as a life. Boxes have a short life cycle, so it's important that it's cheap and it's easy to produce and to be recycled afterwards. And the same goes for cardboard as well. It's really easy to recycle. You could also say the fact that actually it gives a little bit of protection because of the way that it's made. It gives a little bit of impact resistance as well. So a paper carton soup company are producing 2,000 units of prototype packaging. Select an appropriate printing process for this packaging and explain why it is suitable. So obviously we've not covered printing processes yet, but you can still use your textbooks to answer it. So again, pause the video, have a go at answering. So you would use something like digital printing, which could have been inkjet or laser color printing. So it's high quality, consistent colors, so it's always going to look the same. It is fast, so you can do mass production quite easily. Good economies of scale, which means high initial setup cost, but actually once you've set it up, you can make loads as quickly as possible. It doesn't matter. It's easy. Increased flexibility of the process basically means if a design changes, it's really easy for you to stop printing and change it. Whereas if you're using something like offset lithography, because that's a big industrial machine, if a design changes, you've got to stop a whole process and redesign everything, and it takes a huge amount of time. So it's important that it's easy to change. So you don't need any specific tooling for it. Faster setup, colours can be adjusted, really easy to print, specialist equipment not used, and then offset lithography is not a suitable process due to the small size of the print run. So actually, for the grand scheme of things, 2,000 units is considered not that much. So I didn't break down the marks for you this time on purpose because we've done it a few times now. So thinking about it, look at the mark scheme. So there's 6 marks. So realistically, you're looking at 3 key points and then backing yourself up with evidence. So that is paper and board. I am going to put up the first year paper and board video as well. If you've got any questions or you're not sure of anything or you've got any requests for video tutorials, send me an email and I'll do my best to get around to all of them.